Welcome to Sword and Shield, the official podcast of the 960th Cyberspace Wing. Join us for insight, knowledge, mentorship, and some fun as we discuss relevant topics in and around our wing. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any particular person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to another episode of the Sword and Shield. This is Chief Master Sergeant Christopher Howard, 960th Cyber Wing Command Chief, and with me today I have...
Hey, I'm Chief Master Sergeant Christopher Coach Bluto, and right now I have the honor of serving as your 10th Air Force Command Chief.
Hey Chief, I really do appreciate you taking the time today to talk to our gladiators out there in our realm, and I was kind of hoping that you could give us a little bit of background of who you are and kind of how you got here.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that opportunity. So I am an airman. I'm a little bit different than other reserve airmen. I don't have a civilian career field. I've done nothing but wear the uniform. I started out active duty. I did 14 years. I went to Intel school, so I earned an Intel badge and went immediately to the remotely piloted aircraft world, flying RQ-1s. I spent a long time in that community, watching it grow to becoming an armed platform and being employed in war, having the opportunity to lay hate on the enemy. At 14 years, I crossed over to the reserve. My wife and I did so about the same time. Best decision we ever made as far as a career goes. Being a reserve citizen airman has been phenomenal. I crossed straight into the AGR program, still in the RPA world. I spent a long time as an AGR. I grew up through leading at the squadron, the group, opportunity to be a command chief. That was my first TR opportunity. And then I had another another AGR opportunity as a command chief before I got hired into this. I only point that out to show where my gaps are as a reservist. So I can speak a little bit of TR, I can speak a lot of AGR, I can speak no IMA or ART.
Gotcha. No, that's a, like you said, Chief, a unique pathway, and I think that helps us tell our airmen that there's no one pathway, right? When we look across the board at all of these different command chiefs, there's no command chief that had the same pathway. So I appreciate you kind of highlighting how you got there and some of the unique mission sets. What would you say that is the biggest push that the 10th Air Force, as the command chief of the 10th Air Force, that we have going right now?
Man, Chief, that's a great question. I'll tell you, I think that our message right now is probably the push to remain relevant. So when we look across the board, 78% of our platforms are legacy, right? Mm-hmm. So we are trying to break in and through. You guys are on the leading edge with what you do here as gladiators in the 960th. Some of our other organizations have legacy platforms that we are divesting from. So for us to continue to serve as reserve, we've got to remain relevant. Right. So we are breaking into new platforms, new mission sets to show our value and worth and why we're here.
Gotcha. Looking back through your career, right, and we're talking about where you started off on UAVs and how they've armed them. When we look at where we're going and staying relevant, what signs do you see from your past that you see now that where we might be headed in these mission sets?
So the battle space has changed.
Right.
From when you and I were young, right?
Yes.
So where we are going, you are right in the mix of what that is. So getting to spend time with your wing today and seeing the similarities and how we reference your AOR versus an AOR that I grew up in, right. Man, it translates well to make sense to me. But we are fighting battles all of the time in a domain that can't be seen.
Right.
This is what the future is. We are going to rely more on that, right? So we are very focused and invested in AI and machine learning, having systems that are going to do things that a human cannot nor should not as we move forward to take the fight to pacing threat. That's where I see us going. It's going to be, as long as we can continue that, technology-based driven, right. And your airmen are the ones that are making that happen.
Well, I know I'll speak on their behalf and appreciate the vote of confidence there, Chief. And I'd like to go back to when you and I first came in, late 90s, to what we have today. Do you see any correlations of some of the challenges we had in the 90s to the challenges we have today when it comes to, gathering our airmen and getting them engaged?
So maybe some of that. Here's the thing, Chief. When I joined the Air Force, I had my crusty NCOs telling me back in my day, we never would have done that. Nobody would have said this, right? They're so different. Here we are saying the same thing.
Oh, great.
I think we're carrying a different message with how our airmen are different this time. I think we are embracing their differences and who they are and how they grew up more than we did when I joined the Air Force. When told to grab a mop, I grabbed a mop, and it's what we went and did. As far as gathering, I think it's easier now, right? So did not have access to Teams, Zoom, cell phones, able to communicate the way that we are now. I didn't even have cell phones, man. I had a
I'm with you.
rotary phone in the dorm room, almost literally. Now we're able to gather collectively, which is perfect for you with 10 GSUs and other OLs, even spread more. The ability to deconflict a couple time zones, but still have everybody gathered, air quotes, right, in one location, is significantly easier than it was when we came in. Does that answer your question?
Oh, it does, right? I really appreciate you hitting on the part that, back in the day, all the NCOs are like, you guys are undisciplined. You guys are all jacked up. I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the Air Force of tomorrow because of you. And then, being a crusty chief myself now, right, I look back and I hear the same thing from our NCOs now about our airmen today, and I go, I'm just glad that I hear it from other people too, that, hey, take it into context. They thought you were, not that great then. You may have this perception, but get to know your airmen, get to know what they're bringing to the fight, and I think you'll realize that it's not what you think it is, right?
Chief, I'll tell you, every time the boss and I get to have sit-down time with our airmen, this comes up.
Right.
The recruiting and who airmen are today and the discipline piece. So the question that I ask is, hey, who in here is a parent?
Yeah.
Raise your hand, right? You are the one that is influencing who your children are going to be when they enter that workforce,
Right.
whether that is in a uniform or not. So be careful where you throw stones before you look in the mirror.
Right, and I think that's a great correlation, right? Because when we're the young NCOs, or we're even the chiefs of today, the things that we say, the precedents that we set, the way we hold the standard, sets the tone for those young airmen.
Absolutely.
And what that career looks like.
Agreed.
So going back to your position in the 10th Air Force, what would you push out to your greater airmen, to our gladiators, some of the things that you would like them to think about their service coming up?
Chief, I appreciate that question as well. I'll tell you, we just came back, and you and I were at the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force SEL Summit.
Right.
And I'll tell you, we have to get back to focusing on basics. And in this case, we'll talk about basics being the standard.
Right.
Holding the standard, everything from uniform wear to shaving in the morning when you're not on a profile or a waiver, coming in. When we cannot get the basics and the fundamentals right, we can't get the big things right, and we can't focus on that. So I want us to get back and focus on those baseline fundamentals so that we can have the capacity to focus on the big things that are coming.
Right.
Professional development changes are coming. We got some briefs on that this past week, and I'm excited on the focus that we are going to put into developing airmen. The prioritization that we put into it as the United States Air Force military in an enlisted development is unlike anywhere else.
Right.
This is why we are who we are, right? The core of our force is the NCO.
Right.
But we got to get back to those basics and get that right. We've got to hold the standard. We've got to not be afraid to look somebody in the eye and correct them, right? And you're not going to do that through a phone. You're not going to do it through a text. You're going to do that with an arm around the shoulder, proverbially, right?
Right, yes.
And have that conversation with, hey, man, we've got to get this right. Anytime we have to take a stand down, just about any time an incident happens that we have to stop and look back, it comes back to a fundamental or a baseline event that was not done correctly because we have gotten complacent.
Oh, yes.
So that will be my message coming out right now. And that's not just for me. That's going to be from our higher-ups as well. Right. So we're going to enforce that. So then we can focus on the more difficult things.
No, I fully agree, right? Those basics, that sets the foundation for all of the little things that we do. I go back to when you and I were in basic training. where we folded shirts. And we're like, why am I folding this shirt? Why am I folding this shirt, right? And it didn't make any sense at the time. But as I grew as an airman, as an NCO, and senior NCO, and even today, I can go back and go, the reason it mattered was we were given some specifics, and we had to meet those specifics. And it seemed trivial at the time, but when you go into all of these different AFSCs, when it talks about maintenance, having to do I'm trying to remember the word of it. Basically, the safety wire on a bolt. I had to have 7 twists. Why 7 twists, right? But the specifics matter because there's some kind of reason behind it to make sure that it's safe or it gets after a process so that we can be successful. And that's why those standards matter.
They do. And I'll tell you, Chief, I still remember folding T-shirts. There's a couple things that you hit on, as well as what it taught was that attention to detail, right? Here's what we get back. The other thing that it taught me when I was in basic was team building, and I didn't even realize what it was.
Right.
So you find things that you were good at with these attention to detail requirements that we had to do. So I couldn't fold T-shirts. But man, I'll tell you, I could space your closet like you read about, your locker like you read about. So, and here's the deal: I will help you with your foot locker. You help me with my T-shirts, and we are done that much faster, so that we're able to get back in the knowledge in the book and try and get smart.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. So, what kinds of words of advice could you give our airmen as they're starting out in their career, through their career, that has maybe helped you? A mindset, a mantra, or a focus?
Chief, there's some things that I wished I had known earlier. Well, that's not even fair. There are things that I promised that I was probably told earlier in my career that I chose not to heed, much like a teenager would from a parent. Some things that I think can help people. Man, focus on what is within your span of control. That is what you can influence, right? The things that you have no control over, the more time you spend on that, the more frustrated that you are going to be. And it's just going to bog you down. Right. So focus on the things that are within your span of control. And another one that I tell people that I didn't learn early enough was always put yourself in the position to say no instead of being told no. And this comes down to things as simple as accomplishing your training, making sure that your IMR is good to go, that you are green, your TFAT is done, your PME is done, your CCAF or equivalent is done, which I get in your world is not as big of a deal as it is for others. I mean, we met Dr. Sargent today, right?
Right.
It's phenomenal airmen that are going on, but that you have here leading. But put yourself in the position to say no instead of being told no.
Right.
It's always better to be picked than playing catch up.
I don't disagree, Chief. Just being able to be armed for an opportunity, right? I think we've heard from a couple of speakers throughout the years that luck isn't really luck. It's just being prepared for that opportunity, right? Getting all of those things done, making sure that you're in that position so that you can be successful, so that you have that opportunity. So it's not necessarily being lucky at the right place at the right time. No, you were armed, ready to go, so that you were the no-brainer choice to go forth and conquer.
Right airman, right choice, right time.
Right. Any other kinds of focuses that you think that we need to, as a cyber force, look at when it comes to the Greater 10th Air Force mission at this time?
Absolutely. So one of the things that the boss and I are pushing on is, and we talked about this a lot a few years ago. We don't hear it as much anymore, but connectedness, right? So remaining connected. And I think that has to expand beyond just our little slice of pie, just our stovepipe and our AOR. 10th Air Force is the most diverse NAF in the Air Force, not just the Air Force Reserve, but period dot. We cover all things combat. Kinetic and non-kinetic, right? Yep. So you live right in the non-kinetic world. I think that expanding that knowledge, taking advantage of opportunities to being able to go to the Afric summits where we can rub elbows and crosstalk with our peers that are doing other mission sets to find out how what we have done has impacted and influenced what somebody else was able to do. Something as simple as being able to take their aircraft off from an airfield, right? Based on things that we may or may not provide. So understanding how we fit into the greater picture instead of just what it is, our pie and our our operation or what we're working on here, I think just provides a different lens into service and the reserve itself. So I always encourage that. There's some things that we are putting together at 10th Air Force, a couple initiatives that will help some of that cross flow. So I think that we for many years have underdeveloped our NCO Corps. So we are working on. I was able to work at Nellis with a friend of mine, Chief Master Sergeant, now retired, Moose Hoffman, retired out of Global Strike Command, and he put together what he called Warrior Strike Week.
Okay.
And we took some NCOs that we were intentionally and deliberately developing and brought them together and sat them down and taught them national defense strategy, national security strategy, and then on and built in the cross flow. So building and developing those NCOs that are going to be you and I one day, so we get that return on investment. So we're looking at very similar programs at 10th Air Force. We'll be able to bring them into Fort Worth to the mothership, where they actually get to see the NAF and interact with peers from across the entire numbered Air Force, and build those relationships so that when they all grow together to lead organizations, hey, I've got a friend at Base X or Unit Y that I can reach out to and help us solve this problem. So we're going to start helping people get connected more inside of the NAF.
No, I fully agree. Right, understanding what the NDAA and the NDS, and how that ties in not only to the greater sphere of what we're doing in national defense, but what we do as an Air Force, breaking that down to the Air Force Reserve and into individual wings, individual units, right, helps understand that big picture. And I think that goes to your point of connectiveness, and even touching on that whole networking and how important those relationships are to being successful, not only as an airman, but as an organization and a whole mission set. Because when we go to war, we don't go to war alone, right?
That's right.
All of these different organizations all go to the same place that we're going to, or a portion along the way, to get us all to the point where we need to put that warhead on a forehead and make bad things happen to bad people. So,
hey, Chief, if I can, I'll tell you something that I need our airmen to help with. One of our biggest struggles that we have right now is recruiting. Right. So the boss and I thump this drum every chance we get and everywhere we go. We are the best recruiters. It's not an AFSC. It's not a special duty.
Right.
We, as citizen airmen, out in our communities, out in our schools, out in our neighborhoods, are the best recruiters. So we have a couple pushes that we have from 10th Air Force right now. We're working on a campaign. You have seen that come out with Major Vasquez is coming out, and the campaign is See Yourself Here,
right,
where we are finding airmen across 10th Air Force that are able to tell their story, that we're looking to have show in theaters and other places to reach the community. We are pushing, and the boss had a task board that came out that said, you need to get in touch with every junior ROTC, and Civil Air Patrol organization within a 15-mile radius of your installation or your location, which turns out covers the entire country for you, since you are spread literally everywhere inside of the 960th. But that is so that we get back into those environments, right? Get in on a career day, wear your uniform proudly, talk about how you were able to serve in industry as well as coming in and serve your nation. Right. So that's one of the initiatives that we have at 10th Air Force that we need everybody's help doing. And I'll tell you, I'm married to a recruiter, so I hope I get some brownie points on her end, at least for talking about this as well, not just the initiatives that we have at 10th.
No, I think that that's a great point, right? We say it often, but to kind of dig into it a little bit deeper, it is how we portray ourselves. It's the stories that we tell that get into the markets as the recruiters can't. It's those conversations, those interactions that lead to that member more often than not to go to the recruiter's office, or at least be susceptible to the conversation from a recruiter. And that's what it really matters. And the other piece, when we look at, and I think it came up in the SCL briefing, was that that propensity for people to see us in a positive light, being the good stewards of our mission, being the good stewards of what we represent, and why it is a good thing, why we are proud to wear this uniform, and then why we're proud to serve our country in defending our nation.
That's right.
I do appreciate your time, Chief. I know we're getting kind of long and your schedule is kind of tight, but is there any parting shots that you might, or parting thoughts or words of wisdom that you would like to give to our gladiators?
Words of wisdom, not my thing. You got to be wise for that to happen. But I've always got closing comments, Chief, right? So I've never met a chief that didn't have something that they wanted to say. Mine will start with a thank you. So, man, Reserve Citizen Airmen are my favorite. Everybody that chooses to wear the uniform is choosing to serve. It's a sacrifice. When you do that as a Reserve Citizen Airman, right, we talk about the stool that we are balancing.
Right.
We are balancing family and civilian employer and service to country. And the way that we are able to do that just amazes me. So I appreciate, and obviously that's geared towards our reserve listeners that you have on the podcast, but I appreciate what you do choosing to come in. Every time that you come here is a choice, and it is a sacrifice that you are making, whether it's to family or employer or school, and I can't thank you enough. I love wearing this uniform. I love being a part of this organization. I don't think there's a better place to serve than inside of 10th Air Force. It gets after what we do, right? And what we do is bad things to bad people and break their stuff, whether that's kinetic or non-kinetic. And you guys are right in the middle of that and will continue to be in the future.
Awesome, Chief. Fully agree with everything you said on that one. It's been an honor. But with that, I want to tell our gladiators, thank you for listening. Thank you for everything that you do. It's greatly appreciated by my family and all of us here that you continue to sacrifice your time, your efforts in defense of your nation. And remember, stab our enemies in the face through cyberspace.